Welcome back to Men and Motors, and today you join me with the all new MG HS. And chances are, if you're looking at this car, you might also be considering the MG ZS. Now, to help you guys make that decision, if you want to see a full in-depth review of that car, click up here. I was lucky enough to have it for a week late last year, although it was the full battery version, and this one is a full petrol engine. Now, I'll get onto the differences later on in this video, but the first thing that I want to address is how different this car looks, because it is the facelift and it is just enhanced beauty. First of all, you'll notice you get this massive mouth at the front, which is a huge grille. It's now black, it looks a lot better. You get these sleeker looking headlights, and then the indicators have actually flipped orientation and now mounted vertically here in this fake air intake. The other good thing is you now get real 18-inch diamond cut alloys. On the ZS, I expressed my frustrations. You got those hideous plastic fascia boards that you could pop off. But the good thing is these are real 18-inch diamond cut alloys. Now, there are more enhancements with this car, which will result in me talking about the back or the booty, because I'm so glad they've done it, and it just makes this thing look a little bit prettier. The first thing you'll notice at the back is you get these prettier rear looking tail lights, and they've got some nice LED technology in them, and they do give that full beam of light rather than seeing the spots that you would do in cheaper or earlier LEDs. One of the best things they've done on this car, and I'm really glad and thankful for it, is they got rid of those horrible exposed exhausts and they've actually put fascias in here instead, which do look a little bit better. I never thought I'd say I'm a fan of fascias, but on the previous car, if you look at the exhaust, it just looked cheap and not finished properly. This looks miles better in my opinion. One thing that really stresses me out with these HSs is this horrible plastic fascia board here behind the reg plate. Now, I know why that is, because in countries like Japan, Shanghai, Malaysia, Taiwan, where these cars were first originally released, the reg plates are a lot narrower and they fit on. A bit lazy though, just to bolt the new reg plate onto the old mount when you could get rid of that and put it on. It'd look a lot neater. That is something that I would do if I bought this car. Grandad statistic loading. On this model, you get a powered tailgate. It is rather slow, but it is a nice touch. On the ZS I reviewed, it didn't have that feature. Anyway, now, whilst we're talking about the boot, and before I get in to do the litre test, it is 463 litres, and that can be expanded to 1,454 if you fold the seats down. And to prove it, I will get in a second, but you notice there is quite evidently a small problem. I'm 6'3", and if I just dip my head, I'm kind of hitting it, and the boot of this car does open rather low. It would be nice for it to open a bit higher. You can't though, because the spoiler would foul against the bodywork. It's a little niggle. I know I'm being a bit pedantic, but it's just one of those things. Right, do I fit in the boot? Well, you can sit quite high like this and take in the scenery and listen to all the sheep that are currently interrupting this review, and they're now all running off because I must have scared them. But do I fit in the boot? Let's have a look. It's quite a tight squeeze, I'm not going to lie, because the floor is quite high, but I reckon I could close that. I'm not going to do it because it's a button to open it and there's no one here to currently help me get out. You do get this parcel shelf that comes across. Quality isn't the best on this, because when you do release it, it struggles to go back, so it's not actually the best, but you can't moan. You get a little bit of underfloor storage here, basically where a spare wheel would go. There isn't a spare wheel in this car. There is an air inflator and a foam filler, but you've got little pockets here to put stuff under the floor, and you put that down. So all in all, the boot space is rather good, and it just adds to that family car value. Now the back end is out of the way, I should probably tell you what this is. Well, this is the trophy model, and it costs £27,495. You might think that is ridiculous, but personally, I think it's an absolute bargain. Day's money, especially with new car prices in 2024. If you compare this to like a Vauxhall Mokka, a Ford Kuga, a Peugeot 3008, this wins in my opinion, because it absolutely boasts quality and it does feel very luxurious for that sort of price. Now, you're probably wondering what powers it. So let's pop the bonnet like we normally do, where I just have to squeeze over all this mud because I live in the 14th wettest place in the UK. If you want to drop a guess in the comments, guess now, but I'll tell you, it's Manchester. It is always raining and it is always sloppy. It really bugs me, to be honest. And I know I'm ranting now, but this is meant to be a car review, so I'll get back to the car review. If I open this, you get these hydraulic rams, again, boasting quality. most cars you have to lift it up and prop with a rod. So what powers this car? It's powered by a 1.5 litre petrol turbocharged engine with a 7-speed dual clutch automatic gearbox. It has a top speed of 118 miles per hour, a 0 to 60 of 9.6 seconds, and it produces 162 PS with 184 foot-pounds of torque, which I think is ample for the size of the engine. Don't get me wrong, when you look in the engine bay, it does look like you could fit something a lot bigger in there, but with the world going green, we need to be looking at smaller engines with battery boosts and minimal emissions, and that is something what this car does. It averages around 36 mpg, but I will say, after driving roughly 500 miles in it on the motorway, I've actually managed to get over 40 mpg out of this, driving it nice and soft. Now, one thing I absolutely love about this HS is the interior. It is by far the best interior in a car of this price in this group. I haven't seen anything better. It is so premium, it looks fantastic, and we'll get inside and I'll now show you. As you get inside this car, everything feels luxurious and premium. There is leather everywhere, or leather style as MG call it. Considering it's not real leather, it's probably leatherette, it feels amazing and it also smells amazing. This has got an added option on this car. It's around £500 more expensive, but you get the two-tone leather, you get the red and you get the black. Now, one thing I want to say about this car, every little touchy-feely finish looks fantastic. And you can tell MG have seriously focused on getting the things right that people actually care about. One of my main frustrations with cars nowadays is the interiors date very quickly. I don't think that's going to be the case with this. And what you have to remember is, as good as a car looks externally, you also want it to look really nice internally, because you're going to be sat there for hours on end per week looking at this interior. And it really does feel fantastic. You get these lovely sport style seats with Alcantara on the back here, black leather on the top, red leather on the sides. They are quite comfortable for somebody that isn't as tall as me, and I'll get into that on the road test. You get a stop start button as standard, lovely steering wheel, which again seems very influenced by Mercedes. It's a lot of the buttons look very similar to that, and then you get this really strange button on the steering wheel called Super Sport. Obviously, this isn't a super sport car, this is a sports utility vehicle. So again, I'll get into that further on in the video. You've got all lovely piano gloss black touchy-feelies everywhere, electronic handbrake, different driving modes. You can open the tailgate sat in this position. You've got Apple CarPlay, digital dash. If I just start the car, it all comes to life. You've got all these little dials and everything changes in front of you. The screen quality, don't get me wrong, it isn't the most crisp and most sharp quality, but again, you have to take a step back and think, well, this car is £27,400. You know, it's got a lot of tech. It's very high spec. Electronic seats in here, passenger and driver's side, electronic mirrors, heated mirrors, blind spot assist, electric windows front and back. You've got all these little cubby holes here, and a really strange thing inside the cubby hole is it's got a little vent at the bottom. If you open and close it, it allows air in there. It's not a fridge, that's what I did think it was because it showed the frost sign at the start. A strange thing in this though, there is no wireless charging pad, which I find a little bit different, you know, in today's age, especially with things moving forward. You would expect that to be in here as standard. No USB-C slots either, they're all USB 2, which again is another little strange factor, but you get 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and it's enough just for people to charge their phones. Central locking buttons here, vents everywhere, lovely, again, Mercedes styled air vents I would call it. You get this lovely perforated leather above the clocks, and then on the actual dashboard it's like a really premium plastic with a fake rubberized stitch line in there. All in all, I think this interior is one of the best on the market for the value for money. You get ambient lighting again, which is something that everybody wants in cars nowadays, and you can change the color of it, and it has a fantastic feature called pulsing mode. So at night it'll just casually pulse through all the different colors and you can see it light up. So it's normally down here, it's across the dashboard, and it's in the door cards at the back. So what's it like in the back? Well, the leg room is absolutely unreal. You've nearly got almost a flat floor. Obviously there's still a little bit of a tunnel here for the exhaust, but it is nearly virtually flat. You've got two little cubbies here behind the seats, and then the armrest I'm really impressed with. Not only is it leather, but when you open it, it's got this lovely brushed titanium finish on it. And if I pop that open, you've got a cup holder, and if you press that, you've got some room just to store like pens or whatever stuff you normally store in the cubbies. So what's it like for leg room? Well, you know I'm a tall guy because I've mentioned it a lot in this video, but I am so comfortable sat here. That seat in front of me is set how I would sit if I was a passenger, so there's plenty of leg room in the front. There's still enough in the back here, and also there is loads of headroom. I do not feel one bit claustrophobic or crammed in here. It is really comfortable, a lovely place to be, nicely positioned armrest. You've got privacy glass as standard, 2 USB chargers down here, climate control vents that you can move around at your leisure, and it just feels like a premium finish. So does it pass the family car test? It absolutely does. So now we've got that out of the way, I think it's about time we took it out on the road. The first thing you notice when you start to drive this car is how quiet it is. There is a little bit of road noise there, but it's nothing too aggressive, and I do actually think you could tweak that out by being selective with what tyres you put on it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and boast about how fantastically fast this car is. It isn't. It's a sports utility vehicle. It's probably aimed at a family, or you might even be considering buying your wife one while you just have a cheap run around for work. The steering is very smooth, very soft. It does feel quite nice. Obviously everything feels premium, as I've said earlier. You've got all different driving modes. You've got Eco, Normal, Sport and Super Sport. I'll get into what they do shortly. You even have hill descent control, and I tried this out earlier thinking, would it actually do anything? And you know what? It does. So it does work, and it does sort of fight the brakes, and you can go down a hill actually not holding onto anything, and it will slow the car down for you. The suspension I find quite elasticy, and what I mean by that is when it bounces, you feel like it's immediately pulling you back down to the floor, and it's kind of overreactive. You can just see as I hit the dips, and you do feel that, and the car has like an extra bounce because of how elasticy it is. Now, could I live with that? Yes, I probably could live with it. It doesn't seem to be too much of a problem. It's just something I've noticed. But if we talk about power terrain and drive terrain, that's where things kind of get a little bit better, but a little bit sloppy at the same time. Now, the gearbox is good for the money, and that's the key part in that sentence. It's good for the money. If you get in this car and compare it to a Volkswagen Audi Group DSG gearbox, you're just going to be disappointed because it isn't as smooth as that. In fact, sometimes it's not smooth at all. And I think MG are aware of this, and it's something that will get tweaked as the later models come out. Where it tends to be a problem is between and second gear. It's quite jerky and quite like clunky. There's no noise that comes from it, but it's like it almost struggles or lags when going into gear, and it gets even worse when you're in traffic. If you're crawling in traffic first, second, first, or first, and you're just creeping forwards, it starts to make you feel a little bit sick. There is room for improvement there with everything, but like I say, you have to take a step back, value the car for what it is, and it is a cheap SUV in today's market. There is one other niggle though that really gets on my, well, man boobs we'll call them to be PC. The rear view mirror. Now it is auto dimming, so kudos for that MG, but it is just in the wrong place. Now I'm 6'3", I'm sure you all know that because I tend to mention it in a lot of the videos just so you can get a feel for what type of person I am driving this. But it is in the wrong place. It sits so low in the car that when you are driving down the road and you have another vehicle at 10 o'clock on the motorway, or maybe in another lane on a dual carriageway, or you're going for the overtake, you literally cannot see it because you have this huge black plastic surround here. It has a radar and a camera in it for the MG Pilot and collision avoidance, and it also has the automatic sensor for the wipers. It just needs moving further up, so the vision at the 10 o'clock view, and that needs shrinking in size. Maybe all the technology in it wants to be moved into the headliner, so you just have the mirror. Now again, being a tall person, I found the seats here rather than sitting in them, because they do look very sporty, you're more sat on them, and you kind of feel like you sat on top of the car rather than in it. And that might not be the same for somebody that's of a smaller height or a smaller size, but for someone like me, it's quite frustrating, I'm not gonna lie. Now with the drive modes, I'm currently in normal, which seems to be the best setting, because as soon as you put it in sport by pressing this button, nothing really changes on the car apart from the throttle response, and you don't notice it when driving down the road. You get a lot of noise and not a lot of movement. But where it becomes frustrating, the sport modes, again, a car like this, should it have sport on it? I don't really think so, but where it really starts to get annoying is when you pull out of a junction. I am talking the slightest amount of pressure on the accelerator pedal, and you're like that in your seat. Whether that can be sorted out with software, it most probably could, but it seems very overreactive and very in your face. And if you was a pedestrian and you're seeing somebody pull out of a junction like that, you would probably mind the words. And then one thing that really confuses me is this Super Sport button. It's kind of pointless. Press it like this and it goes into Super Sport, and you put your foot down. There we go, about a 4-second lag, and you get a lot of noise and very little gain. The noise is there, it doesn't really pick up fast, the steering doesn't get any stiffer, the suspension doesn't get any stiffer. It is pretty much a gimmick. So, whilst we're talking about how the car drives and everything else, we might as well speak about MPG, because if you're buying this car, you probably want something that's cheap to run, and that is exactly what this is. Like I say, on long journeys, I've been getting over 40 miles to the gallon out of this, and MG only boast around 36 to 37 MPG, but I've been getting over 40. On a full tank of fuel, I've been getting well over 400 miles, so it is quite an economical car, and I should imagine that the hybrid version of this would be a lot better. MG offer a 7-year warranty, which I personally think is fantastic. You could buy this car brand new, run it for 7 years, and should you stay within the mileage limits, it's not really your problem unless it's wear and tear. And after reading on the forums, there doesn't really seem to be much that goes wrong with these cars, apart from a few electrical niggles with the earlier generations on the infotainment system. But yeah, as a family car, should you buy one? I think you should. And if I had to pick it against like a Vauxhall Grandland, Vauxhall Mokka, a Ford Cougar, what would I pick? I would pick this because it is a bargain compared to them, and it just looks 10 times better. So to summarise, I think this is a fantastic car for the money. That is the key element in this. It is a great car for the money, and it is certainly winning against the competitors that I mentioned earlier in this video. I want you to do me a favour, let us know what you think of this car in the comments, and more importantly, let us know what you guys want to see going forward. But if you want to see what Jim's been up to, click up here, and if you want to watch some old archive Men and Motors footage, which sometimes has never actually been aired on TV, click down here. But in the meantime, I'll see you all very soon. It's a bit cold out here.